So what were some of your favorite stories?
Can't tell him my wife just came in.
If you've ever taken a drive down Shady Grove Road in Hot Springs, Arkansas, you've probably noticed a small farm just off the Lake Catherine campgrounds. Humphreys Dairy was founded over a century ago in 1910 by Harris Humphreys and his family.
From what I understand, they come over here in a horse and wagon. He was in sawmill business before he got in the milk business. Found some acreage over here and bought a little land, and got him built a house and started having kids, and bought a little more acreage. And finally somebody said, well, why don't you take that milk to town and sell it?
This simple suggestion from a neighbor would go on to spark a Garland County icon.
He went in a horse and wagon. He went to go to Hot Springs, and my grandmother would make cakes, and he'd carry them cakes to town in the wagon, and he'd sell them along with a little milk. And then as time went on, business got better. He bought a milk truck.
The Humphreys would go on to buy several more trucks, sending the delivery service into full force. As Harrison's son Gene matured, he began to take over the reins of the business. At 22 years old, he married another locally raised girl, Mary.
I was raised at Carpenter Dam. I was raised in the lake. I was married when I was 17, so he was it. He was it. Wonderful man.
Mary soon realized that being married to a dairyman wouldn't be easy, and she would take on many jobs of her own in the business.
It was kind of rough. Early morning, be sure everything was okay at night. Wanted to live here so he could work on the trucks. If they didn't start, if the men didn't come to work, he'd run the route. So we stayed here. I worked in the office for I don't know how long when I wasn't having a baby. It was fun, meet a lot of people coming and going. Get all the complaints from everybody's sour milk, or didn't get any. But I don't know if anything would be any better.
Gene and Mary's children also played a vital role in the dairy.
We'd be up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and we would head to the dairy house, and either Dad or Uncle Paul would have our favorite meal, a rabbit, and we would eat. And then we would go on either the truck that whichever driver we were going with, and that would be the day until we got back sometime in the afternoon.
One product garnered the attention of customers more than all the others.
You know, it's got to be the chocolate milk. But and that's one of the things that I think helped the legacy of the dairy, even in the years to come, that you see someone on the street or people you know, or they know you had or were connected to Humphreys Dairy. That was the first question. Where do you get it?
Jimmy Humphreys, the brother behind the process of making that special chocolate milk, thinks he knows what the secret to its success was.
The bottling of the chocolate milk was very simple. I think our biggest secret was we used regular whole milk in it. We had a secret formula of sugar and a chocolate powder, and you stirred it up, mixed it up in a can, and poured it in a 200-gallon vat. I could only make 200 gallons every time I run. I could do 400 gallons a week, 200 each run. And I think the secret was it was in the glass milk bottle. And on certain days when we had plenty of cream left over, sometimes I'd put a little extra cream in it, and that'd really make it extra good. And it was just good chocolate milk.
Gene and Mary's only daughter, Marilyn, was confined to a different kind of work.
Growing up on the dairy was real different with being a girl. Daddy would never let me go down in the barn, really. He didn't want me to be down when the cows were milking. He thought that I should be in the office working. So I worked in the office with Mom and my Aunt Sis, Daddy's sister. So that was different. When I was younger and smaller, it was stamping, and I hated it. We had to stamp the return envelopes Humphreys, you know, with a stamp pad. Now you print them out like that. But I hated that job. And then they had route books that were white cards and it had the customer's name, and I had to stamp that, and then sometimes would have to write in the names. I didn't like that at all.
After 3 generations, the Humphreys realized their time in the business was coming to an end.
We weren't as big as the big boys were. I remember them all the bigger dairies, Coleman, Borden's, all of them getting a lot bigger than we are. We were just a family operation, door to door. Mostly we did some schools and restaurants. As time went on, we had a lot of trouble in our plant. Ammonia machine, we couldn't keep it going, and part of the family didn't want it to go on, so we sold it. Quit.
Things got where the barn was leaking and we just couldn't have enough finance to put it back together, and the vehicles were wore out and we were getting worn out, and I hated that we closed it up for my son's sake because they still were young, but the situation just boiled down that it was time to close it up. And it was a sad time, but something that we just had to do.
I do remember on the last day of business of the milk delivery, I brought my 3rd grade class out here, and we were the last field trip out here. And which is another thing it had. It was connection with the community. Schools would bring their classes out, and kids would see things, you know, they would think, you know, you'd ask some young people now, well, where's the milk come from? And they'd say, oh, the 7-Eleven or the corner of the grocery store, not really knowing where milk came from.
Despite its closing, the dairy has left a lasting impact on the family and community.
It's historical. It's a big part of the history of this community. As a matter of fact, the gentleman that bought the dairy has had it placed on the National Registry of Historical Places, and he uses it as an event center, and he's redone the house. And to me, it's just, it was an important part, a very important part of the community. And if you talk to people, when you talk about the chocolate milk and stuff, that's what everyone brings up to me. And I feel very fortunate to have grown up here.
We just had a good time. Just had a real good time growing up on the farm. Didn't have no money, but we had a good time.
They liked it. They said they didn't, but they did. They loved it.
You got another question?
And I love them. Come home one day, the house smelled terrible. I went and they had the bathtubs full of fish. They'd been fishing and caught fish and put them in the bathtub. Didn't they?
Yeah, we did.
It was fun raising them on the